All right, hello, friends. This is the reading for part 2 of chapter 1 of The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind by William Kamkwamba and Brian Mealer. This is part 2 of chapter 1 of our text. My parents wanted me home before dark, but that was my favorite time of day anyway. It was when my father and Uncle John, Jeffrey's brother, finished their work in the maize fields and came home for supper. In the kitchen, my older sister Annie helped my mother prepare the food. Since we had no electricity, we still cooked everything over a fire. As Annie fed sticks into the flames, my mother stirred a pot of something delicious. She was letting the smells escape into the courtyard. Since I was a growing boy, it was hard for me to wait, even if I'd just eaten quinoa in the trading center. My stomach growled. I'd stand in the doorway begging. Just a few more minutes, my mother would say. By the time you wash your hands and face, it will be ready. Usually before supper, my cousins gathered in the courtyard and played soccer. Since we had no money for a real ball, we made our own using plastic shopping bags that we called jumbos. These bags were wadded together and tied with rope. They didn't have the same kind of bounce as a real soccer ball, but they still allowed us to play. All across Africa, children used the same jumbo balls. If it was the rainy season when the mangoes were ripe, we filled our pails from the neighbors' trees and ate them for dessert. We bit into the juicy fruit and let the sweet syrup run down our fingers. If there wasn't any moonlight for playing soccer, my father gathered all the children, cousins and all, in the living room, lit a kerosene lamp, and told us folk tales. Be still and hush up, he would say. Now, have I told you the story about the leopard and the lion? Tell it again, Papa, tell it again. Sometimes my father forgot the stories and made up new ones as he went along, creating new characters and outrageous endings. And while we loved hearing these tales, the truth was that real life was sometimes difficult to distinguish from fantasy. During the times of year when we planted and harvested our maize, 2 jobs that required lots of work, my father and Uncle John hired someone to help them. The most famous of these workers was Mr. Feary, a man of incredible power. In fact, whenever John and my father needed to clear a new field for planting, they didn't even bother with tractors. Instead, they sent Feary, who yanked entire trees out of the ground as if they were weeds. Everyone knew that Feary's secret was Mango Lomera, a kind of magic that delivered superhuman strength. Only the strongest wizards in Malawi could give you this potion, which came in a paste made from the bones of leopards and lions. To get the strength, the wizard cut your skin with special razor blades and rubbed the medicine into your blood. Once part of you, it never left. In fact, the magic only became stronger with time. Only the toughest men like Feary could live with it inside them. Feary was so strong that no person or animal could beat him. Once, while working in the fields, a deadly black mamba slithered over his foot and prepared to strike. But Feary wasn't afraid. He reached down and whipped the mamba with a blade of grass, leaving it paralyzed. Then he grabbed it by the head and tossed it all the way to Mozambique. People said he carried another mamba in his pocket for good luck, and that the snake was too afraid to bite him. By the time I was 8 or 9 years old, the thought of Mangalomera seemed more and more attractive. You see, I was very small, and this led to constant trouble with bullies at school. The worst was named Limbikani, who was tall and muscular and had older brothers at home, which made him even more ruthless. For some reason, Limbikani liked to pick on me and Gilbert. One day on our way to school, he waited for us on the road and jumped out from a grove of trees. Oh, look, it's William and his friend, Little Chief Wimbe. Leave us alone, I shouted, but my voice cracked and gave me away. Limbikani put his chest on Gilbert's face. Where's the big chief, monkey boy? Looks like he's not here to protect you. He grabbed the backs of our shirts and dangled us in the air like 2 sad puppies. Then he stole our lunch. This happened again and again. Not only did my size leave me defenseless against bullies, it also haunted me on the soccer field. I love soccer more than anything, and each week I'd glue myself to Radio 1 for Malawi Super League action. My favorite team was the Nomads, whose star player was Bob the Savior Mpinjira. The Savior got his nickname on one Christmas Eve when he saved us from defeat against the big bullets. And I can't tell you how much I hated the big bullets. Despite my size, I longed to be a player as worthy as my heroes. Whenever all of us boys gathered for practice and drills, I was some kind of star in my own mind. Oh, how I would shine, zigzagging between defenders and firing the ball at missile speed. Then one day, I was displaying my various skills when Jeffrey and some others called out to me, "Hey, Kirana, give us the ball." Kaira. Kaira, as in Peter Kaira. Despite my love for the Nomads, my greatest hero in all the universe was indeed Peter Kaira, the best player for the Flames, our national team. And to me, a man even greater than the president. To be called Kaira was no small thing, and I couldn't stop smiling. Soon, everyone on the practice pitch was calling me Kaira. Even when I went to the trading center, I was greeted with shouts and praise. "Hey, Kaira, I heard you play like a lion." But when it came time to pick the teams for competition, the captains somehow skipped over me. Thinking this was a serious mistake on their part, I pointed it out only to be told to sit on the bench. How could this be? Well, I thought, the captains are clever fellows. Perhaps they're saving me from injury, keeping me as a secret weapon for the finals. This made me feel even more special. But while I sat on the sidelines, the other players ran past me and yelled, "Keep the bench warm, Kaira," or "Kaira, we'll be needing you soon," as the Bolida, a Bolila, was a ball fetcher. That's when I realized it had all been a joke. I was called Kaira not because of my ferocious skills, but because I was a lousy player. The following summer, I decided to do something about it. Mr. Fury had a nephew named Shabani, who was always bragging about being a real Singanga, who was possessed with Mangolomira. Gilbert and I suspected that he was full of hot air, but we were never sure. Shabani was small like me, yet he boasted like a man 3 times his size. This made us wonder. Shabani didn't go to school, but he worked all day in the fields with his uncle. So he was usually there when I returned home in the afternoons, complaining about bullies or sitting on the bench. One day, after hearing another of my pathetic stories, he pulled me aside. "Every day you're moaning about these boys, and I'm tired of hearing it," he said. "I can give you Mangolomira. You can become the strongest guy in school. All of the bullies will fear you." Of course, having superpowers was a lifelong dream. On the soccer field, I could fly like a leopard with legs like rocket launchers. Pow! Reacting to my Mangolomira, bullies at school would wet their trousers with fright. My father had always warned me about playing with magic, but now, with Shabani standing right there, smiling like a mongoose, I couldn't resist. "Okay," I blurted, "I'll take it." "We'll do it in the Blue Gum Forest," he said. "Meet me there in 1 hour, and bring 20 tambala. A tambala was like a penny in our Malawian money. An hour later, I arrived in the forest and waited in the shadows for Shabani. My heart was beating fast. Shabani then appeared through the trees, carrying a black bag that contained something heavy. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Yeah, I'm ready." Then sit down." We took a seat on the soft red dirt, and he opened his bag of wonders. From inside, he pulled out a tiny matchbook. "In here are the blackened bones of lions and leopards, along with 2 other roots and herbs." He fished out another package filled with strange dust, which he mixed with the ashes. These other materials are extremely rare, found only on the bottom of the ocean. "So how did you get them?" I asked. "Look, boy," he snapped, "I'm not some ordinary person. I got them from the bottom of the ocean. I stayed down there for 3 whole days. And I could do it again if I wanted to. I could turn every person in your stupid village into an ant. So don't play with me, Bamboo. If you want this kind of power, it will cost you lots of money. What I'm giving you is only a small taste." I didn't even see him pull out the magic razor. Before I knew it, he grabbed my hand and cut into my knuckles. "Ah!" I screamed. "Be still and don't cry," he said. "If you cry, it won't work." "I'm not crying." My knuckles brightened with blood. For each one, Shabani pinched a little powder and rubbed it into the cuts. The medicine stung like 100 bees. Once he finished both hands, I exhaled with relief. See, I didn't cry, I said, panting. I've been holding my breath. Do you think it will work? Oh, yeah, it will work. When? I asked. When will I have my power? He thought for a few seconds and said, Give it 3 days to work its way through your veins. Once it's complete, you'll feel it. 3 days. Yeah. And whatever you do, don't eat okra and stay away from sweet potato leaves. I'll remember. And lastly, he added, tell no one. I walked out of the forest rubbing my mangled knuckles. Although they hurt like mad, I had to admit they looked pretty tough. That evening, I hid in my room and spoke to no one. 3 days was a long time to wait, but it worked with my plan. In the beginning of the summer holiday, and the following morning, it was the beginning of the summer holiday, and the following morning I left to visit my grandparents, who lived only a few hours away in the town of Doa. It was the perfect place to receive my powers before coming home a hero. Well, 3 days crept by so slowly, I thought I would die from boredom. Worse, my grandmother kept putting me to work, cleaning in the yard and in the chicken pens and scrubbing her kitchen floor, which left my arms tired and rubbery. Oh, I wondered, when will I become strong? But on the fourth day, I woke and instantly felt different. My arms were heavy, as if laden with stones. I flexed my muscles, and they felt as firm as tree trunks. My hands squeezed into fists, and they were as solid as 2 bricks. Heading outside, I took off running down the dirt road to test my speed. Sure enough, I felt the wind in my face like never before. That afternoon, my Uncle Mata invited me to watch a soccer game at the town field. Perfect, I thought. Here I can test my powers. Like always, the place was packed with people. But I had no interest in the game. Instead, I scanned the crowd looking for the biggest boy. When I found him, around my age, standing in the far corner of the field, I walked over and stomped on his bare foot. He let out a cry. Excuse me, he said, hopping up and down. You just stepped on my toes. I stared at him, saying nothing. I said you stepped on my toes. It hurt. So what? I said. Well, it's rude, don't you think? Then why don't you do something about it? He looked confused. What do you mean? You heard me. Do something, copy. A copy is a drooling idiot. Well, in that case, he said, I'm going to beat you. That's what I was hoping you would say. We began dancing around in circles, and I wasted no time. I unleashed a fury of punches that were so fast and terrifying that my arms blurred before my eyes. I gave him lefts and rights and a few uppercuts for good measure. My iron fists moved so furiously that I didn't even feel them smashing into his face. After a while, though, I began to feel sorry for the guy, so I backed away and took a breath. But to my surprise, the boy was still standing. Worse, he was laughing at me. Before I could unleash another deadly round, I felt a terrible pain in my eye, and then another and another. Soon I was lying on the ground while his fist pounded my back and stomach. By the time my uncle raced over and rescued me, I was crying and covered with dust. What are you doing, William? He shouted. You know better than to fight. That boy is twice your size. I was so embarrassed that I ran back to my grandparents' house and didn't come outside for the rest of the weekend. Once I got home, I found Shabani and confronted him. Your magic doesn't work. You promised me power, but I was beaten in Doa. Of course it works, he said. Then he thought for a second. Listen, did you take a bath the day I gave it to you? Yes. Well, that's why my medicine doesn't allow you to bathe. You never said that. Of course I did. But, as you can see, I was clearly cheated. My first and only experience with magic left me with sore hands, a throbbing eye, and a healthy dose of skepticism. Gradually, the witches and wizards didn't seem as frightening or powerful, and I began to look at the world in a different way. I saw it as one explained by fact and reason rather than mystery and hocus pocus. But in this world, there still existed the same set of sorrows. That is the end of chapter 1 of The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind.